My parents spent my life favoring my brother and treating me like the extra child, until my $198,000 savings exposed truths they never wanted revealed. I'm the older brother. I showed up first, had my time as an only child for 6 years. Then Nick was born and everything changed. Not gradually, immediately. Like someone flipped a switch and suddenly I was set decoration in my own life. Look, I get it. New babies are exciting. Parents get wrapped up in that. But this wasn't that. This was different. Nick wasn't just the new baby. He was the right baby, the one they actually wanted. Mom kept his baby book updated religiously. Mine stopped after the first 3 months. Dad took him to every single one of his activities. I'd ride my bike to robotics club because he was busy with Nick's stuff. Small things that add up over 18 years until you realize you're living with people who barely acknowledge your existence. Nick was a regular kid, not exceptionally talented, yet they still treated him like the second coming. The thing that messed with me the most, he wasn't mean about it when we were kids. He didn't understand what was happening. He thought this was normal. He'd invite me to play with him, share his toys, and actually tried to include me in stuff. The favoritism wasn't his fault. Anyways, I stopped trying around middle school, stopped bringing home awards for them to ignore, stopped hoping they'd show up to my competitions. I'd come home, do my homework in my room, eat dinner in silence while they talked about Nick's day, then disappear again. The high school guidance counselor meeting was the moment I fully accepted how things were. I had real scholarship offers. The counselor was excited, laying out all these opportunities, top-tier programs, reaching out to me directly because of my robotics work and academics. Mom and Dad sat there looking bored until Nick texted that he needed a ride home early from basketball practice. And they left, just stood up mid-meeting and walked out. The counselor looked at me with this expression, part pity, part confusion. She tried to salvage it and said we could meet again with just me. But I knew right then that I was on my own. Had been all along. I got a full ride to state, a solid engineering program. The scholarship covered everything. Room, board, tuition, books. I needed $0 from my parents, which was good because they didn't offer any. Nick got into some mediocre private school with a decent business program. Cost about $40,000 a year. They took out massive loans for him, threw him a going-away party with probably 200 people. College was the first time I breathed. 4 years where nobody compared me to Nick. Nobody ignored my accomplishments. Nobody made me feel like I was taking up space I didn't deserve. I went home 3 times total. Thanksgiving freshman year, Christmas sophomore year, and one random weekend junior year when I forgot my birth certificate and needed to grab it. And each visit reminded me why I stayed away. Everything was Nick. His classes, his friends, his parties, his problems, his opinions. I'd sit at the dinner table and they'd talk at me. Not to me. How's school? Fine. That's good. Then right back to Nick. After graduation, I bounced around for a bit, worked a couple of regular engineering jobs, saved like crazy, and started learning everything I could about solar energy systems. The industry was growing fast, and most people were focused on installation. I saw an opening in maintenance and operations. Started freelancing on weekends. Small contracts with solar farms that needed regular upkeep, but didn't want full-time staff. Fixed problems, optimized performance, kept things running. Word spread. 1 contract became 3, 3 became 7, and so on. Eventually quit my day job and went full-time on my own operation. Just me, a used truck, and a lot of desert driving. The work's physical, climbing, mounting structures, replacing panels, troubleshooting inverters in 110-degree heat. But it's mine. Every dollar I make, I earned. Every client I have, I got through actual work, not because someone handed it to me. My brother, meanwhile, was struggling. He'd graduated and immediately expected some high-level position because he had a degree, bounced between 3 jobs in 2 years. Mom called it finding the right fit. I called it getting fired for being insufferable. And of course, each time Nick crashed, Mom and Dad bailed him out, covered his rent, made his car payments, funded his lifestyle while he figured things out. And each time they'd mention it to me in passing, like I was supposed to applaud their generosity. I didn't. I was busy building something real. Now, let me tell you about my wife, Rebecca. We met at a solar industry conference 5 years ago. I was there checking out new panel technology. She was representing an engineering firm that designed mounting systems. We ended up in the same breakout session about efficiency losses in extreme temperatures. She asked a question that stumped the presenter, something technical about thermal expansion coefficients. The guy fumbled through a non-answer. After the session, I found her and we spent 2 hours talking about actual solutions. She was sharp and direct. Didn't do small talk or fake politeness. We exchanged numbers, started texting about work stuff, then grabbed coffee, then dinner. 6 months later, she met my parents. That first dinner at their house, I should have known better. But Rebecca wanted to meet them. Thought it was important. I warned her. But you can't really explain my family until you meet them. We showed up and Mom immediately asked Rebecca about her job. Before Rebecca could finish one sentence about her engineering work, Dad cut in to tell everyone Nick just made senior analyst, the youngest in his department. I watched Rebecca's expression shift like she was observing something fascinating in a zoo. Dinner was worse. I mentioned landing a major contract. Mom nodded politely and immediately pivoted to Nick's latest promotion. Nick was there with some girl he was dating. He dominated every conversation, dismissing my maintenance work as basically being a handyman. Rebecca shut that down fast, explained in detail what owning a business actually meant, then asked Nick what he did. When he said he was an analyst handling market data, she smiled and said, "So, you make reports about numbers someone else earned." Mom jumped in to defend Nick's sophisticated work. Rebecca, who has a master's in mechanical engineering, offered to let Nick explain investment strategies to her. She'd love to learn. The temperature in that room dropped 20 degrees. Nick tried saving face by explaining his job in detail. Buzzwords and corporate speak that meant nothing. Rebecca asked specific questions that exposed how little he actually understood. By the end of dinner, Mom and Dad clearly hated Rebecca. Nick looked like he'd been run over. Rebecca stayed perfectly pleasant the whole time. Just didn't play along with their delusion. In the car on the way home, she said my family was a piece of work. She pointed out what I'd known my whole life, but never heard someone else say, that Nick was average at best, and they'd convinced him he was special, while spending my entire life making me feel like I wasn't enough. It was the first time anyone said it out loud. We got married 2 years ago. Small ceremony. Her parents treated me better than mine had in 30 years. Her dad asked about my business, genuinely interested, helped me land 2 contracts through connections he had. Her mom checked in on us regularly and actually cared. It was jarring. I didn't know family could be like that. My parents came to the wedding out of obligation. Nick brought a date and spent the whole time on his phone, probably texting other girls. So after the wedding, I kept minimal contact with my parents. Texts on holidays, occasional phone calls. I stopped initiating, stopped trying, just existed at arm's length. Nick kept cycling through jobs. Mom and Dad kept enabling him. I kept building my business. Rebecca and I saved aggressively. We drove used vehicles, lived below our means, and stacked every extra dollar. She made good money as a senior project manager. I was clearing solid numbers with the solar contracts. Combined, we were doing well over $200,000 annually. In a lower cost of living area, that adds up fast when you're not blowing it on keeping up with neighbors. We had a goal. Save enough for a bigger house, keep building the business, maybe start a family eventually. 3 months before New Year's, Mom called asking if I could help with her AC. It had died. I drove out there, diagnosed the problem, got it running again. Spent 4 hours fixing it. Didn't charge them anything. Mom thanked me, then spent the next hour telling me about Nick's new job at some startup, how he was going to be important there, how proud they were. I fixed their AC for free on a Saturday, and they couldn't manage 15 minutes without making everything about him. On the drive home, Rebecca was quiet. Then she said, "You know they're never going to change, right?" "I know. So why do you keep doing this?" I didn't have a good answer. Habit, maybe. Some leftover hope that one day they'd wake up and actually see me. But that hope was fading fast. Mom called in early December about New Year's Eve, big party at their house, family tradition. Everyone would be there. I almost said no. Rebecca definitely wanted to say no. But I knew if we skipped it, we'd hear about it for months. The guilt trips would be relentless. One more. I told Rebecca. We go to this one and if it's the same garbage as always, we're done. No more family events. She agreed. But first sign of disrespect. We were leaving. No drawn-out goodbyes. The weeks leading up to the party, Mom kept calling with updates. Nick's new girl was coming. Fiona. Apparently, she was amazing. Successful pharmaceutical sales rep. Mom was already planning their wedding in her head, even though they'd been dating like 8 weeks. She makes great money, Mom said on one call. That was the only thing that mattered. And Nick's doing so well at his new job. I didn't mention that Rebecca made more as an engineer than most sales reps. Didn't mention that my business had just landed another major contract. What would be the point? 2 weeks before the party, Nick called me out of nowhere. We barely talked anymore, so this was weird. He asked about my business with fake interest, then launched into his usual pitch about some revolutionary project he was working on. Eventually got to the real point. I should bring my finance info to the party so he could give me investment advice. Show me how to actually grow whatever little nest egg I'd saved. Something in his tone bothered me. Too interested, too pushy. I told him maybe and ended the call. Rebecca immediately clocked it. The guy who'd been bailed out by my parents 3 times wanted to advise me on finances. He was either trying to feel superior or wanted to see my numbers to feel better about his own situation. Probably both. The day before New Year's Eve, he texted me, "Don't forget to bring your laptop tomorrow. I want to show you this portfolio tracker I use. It'll blow your mind." I didn't respond. We showed up at my parents' house around 7 on New Year's Eve. The party was already in full swing. Cars lined the street. Music thumped from inside. Decorations everywhere. Full catering setup. Mom met us at the door. "Oh, good. You made it. Nick and Fiona are in the living room. Come meet her." Nick was holding court in the living room with about 6 relatives clustered around him. His girl Fiona stood next to him checking her phone every 30 seconds. And that's when I realized their entire investment strategy was fundamentally flawed. Nick was saying, "I rebuilt the approach from scratch. Saved the client something like $3 million in potential losses." Dad was beaming like Nick had just negotiated world peace. The relatives were nodding along, impressed by words they probably didn't understand. Rebecca leaned close and whispered, "I'm getting a drink." Maybe 3. Dinner was the usual production. 20 people crammed around an extended table. Mom had gone all out with the catering, multiple courses, fancy dishes, the whole show. During the meal, Mom went around asking everyone about their year highlights. When she got to me, I mentioned landing a major maintenance contract with a solar farm in Nevada. Good money, long-term stability. She nodded. "That's nice, honey." Then immediately turned to Nick. "Nick, tell everyone about your promotion." He launched into a 20-minute speech about his career trajectory, how he'd worked his way up, how his superiors recognized his talent, how he was on track to make partner by 40, blah blah blah. I caught Uncle Ron's eye across the table. He gave me a sympathetic look. Ron was the only relative who'd ever really asked about my life. He was a retired electrician, understood the value of real work. After dinner, people spread out through the house. I ended up in the kitchen talking with Ron for maybe 30 minutes. Then Nick appeared in the doorway. "Gavin, got a minute? I want to show you something in the den." I followed him. Several relatives trailed behind us, curious. Rebecca caught my eye from across the room, her expression saying, "Here we go." He had his laptop set up in the den. Some financial dashboard pulled up on the screen. It looked expensive and complicated. Probably more flash than substance. Knowing Nick, "Check this out," he said as relatives gathered around. "This is how I track my portfolio. It integrates with all your accounts. Shows real-time performance, projects growth based on market conditions. Professional-grade software." The relatives crowded closer, impressed by the colorful charts and graphs. "This is how you actually manage money in the modern age," Nick continued. "Not just letting it sit in some basic savings account, earning basically nothing." I told him my money was fine where it was. He pushed back. What was my return rate? 0.5%. I was losing money to inflation. He could show me how to actually build wealth instead of treading water. Uncle Ron even chimed in that Nick had a point. Nick kept pressing. How much had I even saved? 15, 20 grand, maybe 30 if I'd been really disciplined. When I said it was none of his business, he went in for the kill, acting like he wasn't judging me for not making professional level money, just trying to help me maximize whatever I'd got. Several relatives chuckled. I was the punchline again. Rebecca appeared next to me, voice cold, warning Nick to be careful how he finished that sentence. He doubled down, saying, "I worked a job that didn't exactly come with huge paychecks." He was just trying to help. Rebecca shut that down hard. Explained exactly what owning a commercial operation meant. The contracts, logistics, finances, technical work, but sure, reduce it to blue collar to feel superior. Mom rushed over defending Nick's helpfulness. Dad warned that nobody was insulting anyone. Nick was just offering his professional expertise as a gesture of goodwill. I was about to walk away when Nick reached for my phone on the side table, saying he'd just pull up a savings calculator to prove his point. I grabbed it before he could touch it. His eyes lit up. That look he got when he found an angle. He turned to the gathered relatives and announced I probably had like $5,000 in savings and was too embarrassed to admit it. That's why I was being so defensive. The relatives laughed, some awkwardly, some genuinely amused. Something in me shifted. Not anger, something colder and more final. I was done pretending this was normal. You really want to know? Nick nodded, still smirking. Let's see what we're working with so I can give you proper advice. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and handed it to him without a word. He took it, still smirking. That smirk lasted maybe 3 seconds. His face went white. All the blood just drained right out. His hands started shaking so bad. What is it? Mom said, concern creeping into her voice. Nick, what's wrong? Nick's voice came out strangled. This can't be real. It's real. What is it? Dad moved closer, trying to see the screen. Nick held up the phone with a trembling hand. Gavin has $198,000 in savings. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop in the next county. Everyone stared at that phone screen like Nick was holding evidence of a crime. Uncle Ron's eyebrows shot up. My aunt's mouth literally fell open. Dad's face cycled through confusion, shock, and something else I couldn't quite read. Mom recovered first. That's impossible. Gavin fixes solar panels. He can't have that much money saved. But he does, Nick said, still staring at my phone like it personally offended him. It's right here. Savings account. $198,000 freaking dollars and some change. Rebecca crossed her arms. Turns out work pays pretty well when you actually own the business and don't blow money on stupid stuff. Nick's shock was morphing into something uglier. How? You're crawling around on solar panels in the middle of nowhere. There's no way you earn this much doing maintenance work. I own the business, Nick. Have for 5 years now. Contract revenue runs about $400,000 annually. Overhead's low because I keep the operations small and efficient. Rebecca makes good money at her firm. We both save aggressively instead of spending on stuff we don't need. Pretty basic math. Dad found his voice. You own a business? Since when? 5 years. You never told us that. I did actually multiple times. You just never listened. Mom's face was flushing red. That defensive anger building. We thought you were doing handyman work. You let us think. I didn't let you think anything. You assumed. I told you years ago I started my own operation doing solar farm maintenance. You weren't interested enough to ask follow-up questions. The relatives were watching this play out like it was a live sports event. Uncle Ron looked impressed. My aunt kept glancing between me and Nick, probably trying to figure out the dynamic. Nick wasn't done spiraling. So what? You've been hiding this from us? Playing poor while sitting on almost $200,000. I wasn't playing anything. You all decided I was unsuccessful and treated me accordingly. I just didn't bother correcting you because frankly I stopped caring what you thought years ago. That's your brother, Mom snapped at me. Family helps family. Rebecca let out a sharp laugh. Family helps family. Where were you when he was 18 and on his own? Where were you when he was building his business from nothing? Where were you for literally any achievement in his entire life? We've always supported Gavin, Dad said. But even he didn't sound convinced. You didn't help him start his business. You barely acknowledge he exists unless you need something. But sure, keep telling yourself you supported him. Mom turned on Rebecca. You don't understand family dynamics. You haven't been part of this family long enough to. I understand enough. I understand that you raised one son to think he's exceptional and the other to think he's worthless. That's enough, Dad said, voice hard. Nick was pacing now. I recognized that look. He was spinning out. His whole identity was built on being the successful one, the golden child, the one who made it. And here I was, his supposedly struggling older brother. You know what this is? Nick said, voice rising. This is you competing with me. You can't stand that I'm the successful one, so you're trying to one-up me, showing off your money to make me look small. I laughed. Nick, I don't think about you enough to compete with you. I built my business because I wanted to. None of it had anything to do with you. That's not true. You showed me that balance specifically to humiliate me in front of everyone. You literally demanded to see it. You wouldn't shut up about giving me investment advice and proving how much smarter you are with money. Boys, Mom tried to interject. This is getting out of hand. No, let's get everything out in the open. Nick pressed. Why hide how much you make? Why not tell family you're doing well financially? Rebecca stepped forward. Because of exactly this, you can't handle Gavin succeeding. It threatens your ego, so you're lashing out instead of being happy for him. The party had essentially stopped. Every eye in the house was either watching our confrontation or pretending not to while obviously listening. Mom's big New Year's celebration was falling apart, and part of me felt bad about that, but a bigger part felt nothing at all. Nick grabbed his coat from the chair. His movements were jerky, aggressive. You think you're better than me? I honestly don't think about you at all, Nick. You're not the center of my universe. You never were. His face went red. You're so. He caught himself before saying something he couldn't take back. Fiona, we're leaving now. His girl looked relieved to have an escape route. They headed for the door without saying goodbye to anyone. Mom immediately wheeled on me, asking if I had to humiliate Nick like that. I pointed out he humiliated himself by demanding to see my balance. She said I could have lied, could have said I had less, and didn't have to throw money in his face. Dad backed her up. There were better ways to handle these situations that didn't involve making Nick face reality. I grabbed Rebecca's arm. We were leaving. Mom coldly agreed. We'd done enough damage for one night. We left without another word. Got in the car and drove in silence for 10 minutes. Then Rebecca started laughing. My mom had actually blamed me for Nick's meltdown. Told me to lie about my own money to protect his feelings. We got home around 11, watched the ball drop on TV while having some snacks. Rebecca warned me Nick would retaliate. That look in his eyes wasn't just embarrassment, it was rage. People like him don't handle reality checks well. She was right. My phone buzzed around 1 a.m. text from Mom. You need to apologize to your brother. What you did tonight was cruel and unnecessary. I deleted it without responding. 3 more texts came through over the next hour. Then Dad chimed in with his own message about family loyalty and responsibility. I turned my phone off and went to bed. Rebecca was already asleep, but as I lay there staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. I just didn't know how far this was going. Nick went completely dark for 2 weeks. No calls, no texts, nothing on social media, just silence. Mom called 6 times asking me to reach out to him. Said he was hurt and confused. Said I needed to be the bigger person. I didn't call him. Bigger person or not, I was done managing Nick's emotions. Then my bank sent me an alert. Unusual account activity detected. Someone had tried logging into my savings account from an unrecognized device at 3 in the morning. The attempt was blocked by 2-factor authentication, but whoever it was made 4 tries in 10 minutes. I called the bank security line immediately. The rep confirmed someone had my correct username and the answers to my security questions, but couldn't get past the text verification sent to my phone. Do you know anyone who might have access to this information? She asked. I knew exactly who it was. Nick had been holding my phone at the party. He'd stared at my banking app for several minutes while his brain short-circuited, long enough to see my username in the top corner. Long enough to mentally note details. Yeah, I know who tried this. I changed all my passwords immediately. Set up additional security layers on everything. Called Rebecca at work to tell her what happened. Call the police, she said immediately. He's my brother. He's committing fraud. Gavin, this is serious. I know, but nothing. Call them. Instead, I called my parents, told Mom that Nick tried logging into my bank account. She immediately defended him. He wouldn't commit a crime. He was just upset. I explained someone with my username and security answers tried accessing my account at 3 a.m. and Nick had held my phone for several minutes at the party. Plus, Mom posts everything on Facebook. First pet names, childhood streets, all those get to know me posts that are literally bank security questions. Mom suggested it was a hacker. Dad got on saying Nick was going through a hard time and I was painting him as a criminal after already humiliating him. Suggested it was a security system false positive. Mom told me to work it out with Nick directly. Don't involve outsiders. Like family meant tolerating crime. I hung up and called Nick directly. Warned him to stay out of my accounts or I'd file a police report. He denied everything, told me to prove it, then went on a rant about how I just got lucky with a basic service business while he works in actual finance. I was just some guy climbing ladders in the desert. Mom and Dad already knew I was the problem. Always had been. Then hung up. Rebecca came home to find me adding extra security to every account we had. When she asked if I'd called the police, I admitted I'd just warned Nick off. She went stone-faced. He denied it and told me to prove it, so he was going to keep trying. You don't actually believe that? I didn't. The tone in Nick's voice, that vindictive edge, it reminded me of when we were kids and he'd get caught doing something wrong. He'd deny it, deflect blame, then do something worse when no one was looking. 3 days later, I got a notification from my credit monitoring service. Someone had tried opening a credit card in my name. The application was flagged for verification issues, but it had been submitted with my personal information. Then another attempt, a loan application, also flagged and declined. This time I drove to the station and filed a report. Brought all the documentation, the login attempts, the credit applications, everything. The officer took my statement and opened an investigation. This is clearly identity theft, he said. We'll need to follow up with the financial institutions, but you've got solid evidence here. You know who's doing this? My brother. The officer's expression didn't change. He'd probably seen worse. We'll need to investigate, but if it's him, he's facing serious charges. 2 days later, detectives showed up at Nick's apartment. He denied everything at first, but they had evidence. His IP address matched the login attempts. His device fingerprint was all over the credit applications. When they checked his computer, they found my personal information saved in a spreadsheet. They arrested him, charged him with identity theft, attempted fraud, and unauthorized computer access. 3 felonies. My phone exploded. Mom called 18 times before I answered. She asked how I could do this to Nick. I pointed out he committed the crimes, not me. She said he made a mistake, was angry, and not thinking clearly. I corrected her. Multiple calculated attempts to steal my money and open credit in my name isn't a mistake. It's a crime spree. She begged me to tell the DA I didn't want to press charges. I explained that's not how it works. The state's prosecuting him now. My cooperation just makes their case stronger. Dad grabbed the phone saying Nick's entire life would be ruined. I told him Nick ruined his own life. I'm just not covering for him anymore. Mom got hysterical. He's your baby brother. Don't do this to our family. I asked where my family had been my entire life when I was building something real and getting no recognition. They made their choice decades ago. Nick was their family. I was just the mistake they were stuck with. I hung up and blocked their numbers. The court process dragged on for 6 weeks. Nick's lawyer kept trying to negotiate, reaching out through the DA's office. They wanted a deal that avoided jail time. The prosecutor wasn't having it. Nick had targeted a family member, which made the case stronger. The evidence was overwhelming. He finally took a plea deal. 18 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and restitution for the investigation costs. Mom called from the courthouse. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. Your brother's going to jail because of you. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family. I hope someday you realize what you've done. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Nick going to jail should have been the end. It wasn't. Mom and Dad launched a full campaign. Called constantly from different numbers. Showed up at our house unannounced. Sent relatives to guilt trip me. Posted vague messages on social media about ungrateful children and family betrayal. I ignored most of it. Changed our locks. Started parking in the garage, kept my head down and worked, but they kept escalating. Dad showed up at one of my work sites. Drove 2 hours into the desert to where I was doing maintenance on a 50 megawatt solar array. Just appeared while I was up on a mounting structure. I climbed down. You put your brother in jail. Nick put himself there. One mistake. He made one bad decision when he was emotional and you destroyed his life over it. Multiple felonies isn't one mistake, Dad. It's a pattern. His voice got louder. Family forgives family. Family doesn't destroy each other over money. This wasn't about money. This was about Nick thinking he's entitled to everything, including my identity. You raised him to believe the world owed him something. This is what happens when that crashes into reality. His face went red. Don't blame us. We raised both of you the same. Did our best. I actually laughed at that. Yeah. Name one specific time you helped me after I turned 18. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. You made your choice about which son mattered. Now live with it and get off my work site. You're trespassing. He left, but Mom tried a different approach, showing up at Rebecca's workplace, waiting in parking lots, trying to corner her during lunch breaks. Rebecca called building security the second time it happened. They escorted Mom off property and issued a formal trespass warning. On the way out, Mom grabbed Rebecca's arm. You're poisoning him against his family. Rebecca pulled free. The family is poisoned already. The harassment continued for weeks. Different relatives calling to mediate, family friends reaching out, church people trying to counsel me about forgiveness. I blocked 47 numbers in 2 months. Nick started sending letters from jail. Long rambling things about how I'd always been jealous of him. How this was revenge for years of resentment. How he'd been going through mental health issues and I'd kicked him while he was down. Every letter was the same. His problems were everyone else's fault. He was the victim. I was the villain. I threw them away unopened after the third one. Rebecca and I started looking at houses in other cities. Maybe a fresh start somewhere away from all this. Colorado had some good opportunities. So did Arizona. Somewhere far enough that my parents couldn't just show up randomly. But I liked my business. I had solid contracts and good relationships with clients. Moving meant starting over, and I was tired of running from their dysfunction. Rebecca looked up from her laptop one evening. We could fight back. Restraining orders, legal action for harassment. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to just disappear and let them figure out their own issues. You think it'll actually stop them? It'll make it illegal for them not to right now. They think they can keep pushing because you won't push back. She was right. Another part of me was tired of being pushed around. Tired of being treated like I was the problem for having boundaries. Let's do it. We met with a lawyer, filed for restraining orders against all three of them. Mom, Dad, and Nick. Once he got out, the documentation was overwhelming. Dozens of blocked calls, security footage of them showing up at our house, witness statements from Rebecca's workplace, Nick's letters from jail getting progressively more unhinged. The court date came. Mom and Dad showed up looking like I'd personally betrayed them. The judge reviewed everything. The calls, workplace harassment, Dad showing up at my work site, the letters. Do you have any response to these allegations? He asked them. Mom's voice cracked. We're just trying to maintain a relationship with our son. The judge looked at the documentation again. According to these records, your son has asked you repeatedly to stop contacting him. You continued anyway. But family should work through problems together. Family relationships don't exempt anyone from harassment laws, ma'am. He signed the orders. 500 feet minimum distance. No contact whatsoever. Not directly. Not through relatives or friends. Not through social media. Having someone else pass along a message counts as violation. Any breach means immediate arrest. Am I clear? Mom broke down crying. Dad just stared at me with pure hatred. I felt nothing except relief. We left. Rebecca drove while I stared out the window, feeling lighter than I had in years, like cutting off a weight I'd been dragging around since childhood. Nick got out of jail after 13 months. I got a notification when he was released. We upgraded our home security system that week, added cameras, better locks. The restraining order was in place, but I wasn't taking chances. A week later, my cousin Brian called. Nick wanted me to pass along a message. Stop right there. You know there's a restraining order, right? Third-party contact counts as violation. He just wanted to say. I'm forwarding this call to the police. Don't contact me again about Nick. I hung up and did exactly that. Police paid Nick a visit the next day, reminding him about legal consequences. After that, silence. 6 months later, Rebecca and I bought that bigger house we'd been saving for. Used the money they'd all been so worried about. New place, better neighborhood, space to actually live instead of just survive. My business kept growing. Hired 2 full-time employees. Landed contracts with 3 more solar farms. Bought new equipment. Things were good. Mom and Dad tried occasionally. Birthday cards sent to Rebecca's parents' address. Messages through old family friends. I ignored all of it. The restraining orders got renewed when they came up for review. Nick posted on social media sometimes, vague stuff about betrayal and fake family, quotes about karma and forgiveness. I had him blocked, but mutual acquaintances would show me screenshots occasionally, thinking I should know. I didn't care. Let him post whatever made him feel better. It didn't affect my life. Uncle Ron reached out one last time about a year later. He'd stayed neutral through most of it, which I respected. Now he was making one final attempt. We met for coffee. He got straight to it. Your parents aren't getting any younger, Gavin. Don't you want to reconcile before it's too late? No. He looked surprised, like he'd expected more hesitation. Being a parent requires more than biology, Ron. They made their choices for 30 years. Now I'm making mine. You might regret it someday. I really won't, but I appreciate the concern. He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. All right, then. He stopped trying after that. Some people talk about family like it's sacred. Like blood relation means automatic loyalty. But I learned the hard way that family is supposed to build you up, not tear you down. It's supposed to support you, not steal from you. It's supposed to celebrate your success, not resent it. My real family is Rebecca. Her parents who welcome me completely. The friends I've made who actually care about my life. The employees I've hired who show up and work hard. That's family. The people who raised me. The brother who tried to destroy me financially. They're just cautionary tales now. That's the only real revenge. I guess sometimes the best thing you can do is cut off the dead weight and move forward. Even if that dead weight came out of the same womb you did, especially if it did.